50 years ago, on an ordinary May morning in San Salvador, a gunshot echoed inside a safe house so secret that its address has never appeared on any map. The bullet ended the life of Roque Dalton, Latin America's rock star poet, guerrilla ideologue, and Cold War icon. His body vanished, swallowed by the paranoia of revolution. No corpse, no grave, no justice. Today, the case remains an unsolved murder, a true crime cold case that still divides El Salvador. Stay to the end, because what you're about to hear is a story of comrades who became executioners, of CIA rumors that inflamed a civil war, and of a family still hunting the bones of a man who believed words could topple empires. Crack open Latin America's boldest secrets, fact-checked, footnoted, and irresistible. I'm Arturo, and this is Latin Lore, Crónicas y Curiosidades. From Latin America's history to mysteries and true crime, to local legends, whispering Latin intrigue, every tale is triple verified in archives before it reaches your headphones. Hit subscribe. Fresh revelations drop every week, ready for your next campfire debate. Roque Dalton was born in 1935, the mixed-race son of an American coffee planter and a Salvadoran nurse. Young Roque devoured Neruda, recited Whitman, and by 20 had co-founded the University Literary Circle, churning out poetry that fused barroom humor with leftist fury. Chile, Prague, Havana, Dalton drifted across the Cold War atlas, filing dispatches for leftist journals and studying revolution from the inside. His verses mocked dictators, but they also seduced readers with love-soaked metaphors. By the late 1960s, he was El Salvador's most famous dissident poet, and a man the military regime desperately wanted silenced. Salvador in the 1970s was a pressure cooker. 14 families owned nearly everything. Death squads patrolled the countryside. Washington funneled military aid in the name of anti-communism. Out of this cauldron emerged the Ejército Revolucionario del Pueblo, the ERP. Dalton slipped back into the country in December 1973 and joined the clandestine group. He pushed a risky idea. Instead of tiny foco cells chasing firefights, the ERP should build urban mass movements. That suggestion enraged the group's hardliners. Inside the ERP, the charisma that made Dalton a literary star also made him a political threat. Rumors spread that he was too friendly with Cubans, that he carried a U.S. passport through customs once, that he might be, whisper it, a CIA plant. Early May 1975, in a safe house codenamed Santa Anita, Dalton and fellow militant Armando Arteaga were placed under internal detention. A three-person war council convened. Leading the charge was 24-year-old Joaquin Villalobos, nom de guerre Atilio, a prodigy of guerrilla warfare who believed discipline trumped poetry. Testimony differs on what happened next. Some say Dalton was tied to a chair, eyes level with the barrels of comrades' rifles. Others claim he was injected with a sedative because the triggermen could not stand his gaze. What is certain is that on Mother's Day weekend, May 10th or 11th, 1975, shots were fired and Dalton fell. His body was either buried in an unmarked pit on the outskirts of San Salvador or dumped into the Huasapa volcano foothills. No one has ever produced incontrovertible proof. For Dalton's widow Aida Cañas and sons Juan José and Jorge, that absence is a wound that never scars. In the weeks after the execution, the Ejército Revolucionario del Pueblo fractured. A rival group, the RN, walked out in disgust. International solidarity networks exploded in outrage. Faced with a PR disaster, the ERP leadership quietly admitted the killing was a political ideological error, but still insisted Dalton had forced their hand. Villalobos would later call the murder an error de juventud, a youthful mistake. He reinvented himself as a security consultant in London, advising foreign governments on how to fight insurgents, much like the one he once led. Another commander, Jorge Melendez, codenamed Jonas, ran civil protection agencies under two left-wing presidents. For Dalton's family, watching a suspected triggerman occupy cabinet-level office felt like betrayal writ large. Dalton's murder foreshadowed a bloodletting that erupted full scale in 1980. The US-backed military regime squared off against the newly formed Ejército Revolucionario del Pueblo, which absorbed the ERP. The conflict killed roughly 75,000 people in a nation the size of Massachusetts. Torture cells bloomed in the capital, while villages burned in the eastern mountains. Anecdote: El Mozote, December 11th through 12th, 1981. Government soldiers of the Atlacatl Battalion rounded up hundreds of civilians, children, mothers, the elderly, shot them at point-blank range, then set the bodies ablaze. When journalists first reported the atrocity, the Reagan administration called it propaganda. Years later, exhumations proved more than 800 dead, making El Mozote the worst massacre in modern hemispheric history. Off camera, surviving guerrillas whispered that what happened to Dalton had been a dress rehearsal. If leaders could execute a world-famous poeta without due process, what chance did ordinary farmers have once the war began? The 1992 peace accords promised disarmament and truth-telling, but an amnesty law soon followed, protecting war criminals on both sides. Dalton's case, like hundreds of forced disappearances, was locked in. International pressure chipped away at that impunity. In 2016, El Salvador's Supreme Court struck down the blanket amnesty, yet political will to reopen old wounds remains scarce. Villalobos kept his British address. Melendez kept his local network. Aida Cañas kept filing petitions. Still, no court has issued a single indictment. The poet's bones remain a state secret, if the state even knows where to look. Meanwhile, Dalton's literary stock soared. Schools recite his playful ode, Taberna y otros lugares. May 14th is National Poetry Day in El Salvador. Yet classrooms often sanitize the militant who once smuggled mimeograph machines under his trench coat. His verses keep appearing on protest banners from Santiago to Minneapolis. Y tiembla todo El Salvador cuando lo tocan. They tremble because the mystery still matters. It asks, can a revolución built on justicia survive injustice within its own ranks? May 2025. El Salvador's streets are quieter, ruled by new strongmen armed with smartphones instead of M16s. Yet the ghost of Dalton refuses to fade. Podcasts dissect the killing. TikTok true crime channels splice his poems over archival footage. College students light candles each May 10th, chanting, Dónde está Roque? The question is larger than one man. It is about memory versus amnesia, democracy versus fear, the pen versus the gun, and it is about us, digital storytellers, viewers, readers, deciding whether 50 years of silence ends today. If this story gripped you, hit like, subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss our deep dive Latin American history and true crime documentary episodes. Share this video to keep Roque Dalton's name and the demand for truth alive.